Aisyah.
Hai.
Buat apa tu?
Makan.
Aisyah, kau lupa ke? We have podcast today.
Alah. Pula.
Okay, jom set up. Everyone, ready?
Test.
Kucing lah tu.
Shh.
Hello, Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Hope everyone in this room as well as the listeners are in good health. I'm Ashana Jiha, the moderator for our podcast today. In today's podcast, we are here to talk about a topic that is very popular nowadays, which is boycott. Before we start, I would like to introduce my friends in this room together with me. So maybe we can start with Mai.
Sure. Assalamualaikum. I'm Sarah and I'm happy to be here.
Hi, Assalamualaikum. Sarah here.
Hi, Assalamualaikum. I'm Nadia.
Hello, Assalamualaikum. I'm Afifah.
Now that we have introduced ourselves, I think we can proceed with the podcast right away because I'm very sure listeners are excited to know more about this issue. So when we're talking about boycotting, it is a big deal these days. People are hitting up Google and scrolling through their social media to figure out which products to avoid. So do you guys do that too?
Yes.
Of course.
Okay. So the act of boycotting not just to stand with Palestine, but also to hit companies' wallets if they are supporting Israel. So other than showing solidarity, do you guys know what other reasons that could influence the consumers to boycott a product or company?
That's scared. Yes, Aisha, I totally agree that boycotts are one of the hot issues nowadays. And I'm fascinated by how people all around the world come together and practice the same approach to help the Palestinians. To answer your questions, boycotts are not only implemented to show solidarity to one side of a party, but boycotts can be caused for various reasons. Some of them are due to price increment of products, mistreatment of labor, bad policy, and countless other reasons. However, the most cruel factor that has triggered the public is when it involves humanity, where a war is done to an armless citizens like what is happening between Israel and Palestine now. From what I read in the Al Jazeera website, the latest death toll stands at 34,845 Palestinians and 1,139 people killed in Israel since October 7.
Interesting input, my Sarah. Thank you for the explanation. I totally understand how those factors could bring dissatisfaction towards consumers to continue to support the company or products and take initiative by boycotting them. Nevertheless, it is insane to think how Israel is able to do all of this by themselves. So, my Sarah, can you explain a little on this matter? I'm curious how it is related and how the companies were able to help Israel during the war.
Thank you for the question, Aisha. To get the logic, of course Israel is unable to do it alone. They would never have enough funds to have advanced weapons for attacking Palestine. When we talk about the situation in Israel and Palestine, it's not just about the conflict between the two sides. Companies also play a role in what's happening. You see, Israel relies on a lot of outside help. These companies channeled some of their accumulated proceeds to finance Israel's military operations. And guess where some of that money comes from?
Not so sure.
Yeah, big name companies like Louis Vuitton, HP, and P&G. Brands that are so familiar to our ears. They invest in Israel's economy, which includes things like medical research, diamond production, and technology for the military and police. In fact, these companies made over $200 billion in 2022 alone. So, when people buy their products, they're indirectly supporting Israel's military actions like bombing Gaza.
Thank you, Mai. Now I see the connection and I believe all listeners are able to understand how this problem flows. Nevertheless, just now we only talk about the external factors, where the consumers took the actions to affect the company's performance. What about the internal? Do they keep quiet in regards to this issue? Because I believe it is very unethical for a person to keep on investing and serving the companies, but at the same time they said they also join to boycott the product.
Interesting question, Aisha. True, in my opinion, it is very selfish for a person to keep on investing in a company that supports Israel just because it would profit them. Talking about the behavior of investors, have you guys ever heard about ESG investing?
I have heard it before, but not so sure how it works.
Since we are already on this topic, I think it will be better if I share this little knowledge of mine to you guys. ESG investing is actually an approach that considers three key concepts, which are environmental, social, and governance factors, alongside financial criteria when we evaluate potential investments. This helps investors to identify companies that demonstrate strong sustainability practices, ethical conduct, and responsible governance. Hence, in the case of the Israel and Palestine war, we can relate how it falls under social as there are issues regarding human rights. So, to answer your question whether there are any internal factors that the investors took to support the Palestinians, yes, there are some approaches that they took. Which one of them is implementing ESG investing before starting investing?
How do they do it?
Simply by selling the remaining investment that they had and withdrawing from those companies. To them, investing towards those companies is similar to supporting the activities of abuse and genocide.
Thank you so much, Sarah. What an insightful sharing. This is my first time hearing about ESG investing. I think it is very practical for an investor to apply this approach as it acts as a borderline for the investors to think about the other impacts before investing compared to only focus on the profits. So if I'm not mistaken, you had mentioned human rights just now. I believe everyone will agree when I said human rights is indeed a vast topic. So what are your thoughts when someone ponders the distinction between the call for equality from the LGBTQ community and human rights in Palestine?
Great question, Aisha. Yes, I admit human rights is a vast topic to talk about. But to answer your question, discrimination faced between LGBTQ community and the Palestinian are different and unrelated in terms of their nature and challenges. For equality calls from LGBTQ community, they advocate equal rights, protections regardless gender identity and sexual orientation. Their goals are to promote inclusivity and diversity like legalize same-sex marriage and ensure to have access to healthcare. For them, inclusivity can be part of an ESG investment in social as it includes all without discriminating against any. While human rights in Palestine, it is related to freedom to have rights on land and statehood of Palestine. Palestinians themselves didn't get their rights to have lasting peace and freedom on their land. Due to conflict between Israel and Hamas, Palestinians were restricted from moving from one place to another place. Innocent people also being killed without any reason. Palestinians fight for their freedom to stay alive while LGBTQ community fight for their rights that are against nature.
I agreed with Sarah when she mentioned that LGBTQ community fights for rights that are against nature. Due to this, people who are against LGBTQ will find their cause as irrelevant. I've read an article mentioning that demand for LGBTQ community brings more negative impact if it is assisted, which one of it is in the aspect of health. It is reported that the transgender individuals are among the primary categories of getting HIV infections. Globally, transgender are thought to have an HIV prevalence of approximately 19.1%, compared to an adults in the general population, which means transgenders will have almost a 50-fold higher chance of being HIV positive. If LGBTQ community are given their rights, this problem may get massive and impact more on the society instead of curing the society.
What a fruitful sharing, Sarah and Afifa. I also believe that something that is against nature should not be supported, as it brings more negative outcomes than benefits. So coming back to ESG investing, is there any impact towards the company's stock performance since investors prioritizing the social compared to the profits?
It would be lovely if I could have the floor, Aisha. Just to make this simple and answer Aisha's questions, yes, absolutely, Aisha. There are changes in companies' performance, especially their sales and stocks demand. It's interesting how public protests and boycotts can really shake things up for companies. You know, when we talk about boycotting, sometimes we wonder if it actually makes a dent in the company's performance or if it's just a wishful thinking. But from what I've read, there's evidence that it does have an impact, especially when it's done aggressively. So to make my point clearer, let's just take the easiest example, which is Starbucks, the famous coffee brands that everyone must have tried at least once before. In terms of sales performance, it is reported that they took a hit last quarter. They missed their expected sales by about $190 million, which is quite a cap due to not achieving their targeted sales. It tested the investors' confidence in continuing investing at Starbucks, which makes them withdraw and eventually affects the stock's performance. It is reported also that Starbucks stocks have been on a downward trend for the last 12 stock market session. Something that hasn't happened since they went public in 1992. Right now, their stock is hovering over $95.80 per share, down from its yearly high of $115. It's kind of fascinating, don't you think?
Yeah.
Yeah, and the public can actually make a difference just by choosing to boycott certain products and support alternative. It shows that the power of consumers have to bring about change, even if just a little bit of effort.
Thank you, Nadia. After hearing your sharing, it is more clear now how big the differences can be if we continue this solidarity in the long run. So thinking about boycotting, there are some questions in my mind whether these activities could have an impact on the economy of the country because the demand, I'm sure, the demand for the product becomes lower than usual. What are your takes on that, Nadia?
Great question, Aisha. So my take on this is very simple. The answer is yes and no. Why is that? When people start boycotting certain products, the demand for those products naturally goes down. But the interesting part in this story is it creates an opportunity for local products to shine. This is because the consumers shift their preferences to local products as a way to substitute them. For example, Zeus Coffee and Gigi Coffee. And they have really stepped up their game since the boycotts began due to high demand from the consumer that are running away from the boycotted brands, which is Starbucks. It is reported that in November 2023, when the boycott activities were actively implemented, the revenue for them had spiked up to 30% compared to their previous figures. So how do they achieve this? People who are on social media suggesting local brands that could be alternative to replace their go-to brands that have been supporting Israel forces. By experiencing this surge in demand, Zeus Coffee is not only able to make more money, but they are also creating more job opportunities to keep up with others. So to conclude, it is a yes and no answer because it affects the economy at start, but it bounces back pretty nicely with the help of local products, all thanks to consumers making conscious choices about where they spend their money.
I see. I agree with your explanation, Nadia. In regards to this matter, I would like to add on a few things as it could benefit us and the listeners. Just like what Nadia explained before, when the consumers start substituting their usual brands with local alternatives, it's not just a simple shift in purchasing behavior. It's a signal to the market that there's demand for this alternative product. This surge in profitability doesn't go unnoticed by investors. They see it as a sign that Zeus Coffee is not only meeting consumer demand, but also outperforming competitors like Starbucks in the wake of the boycott. Investors are attracted to companies with strong financial performance and growth potential. So, when they see Zeus Coffee's profitability soaring due to the increased consumer support, they are more likely to invest in the company. This influx of investment can drive up the Zeus Coffee's share price. As more people talk about and support Zeus Coffee as an alternative to Starbucks, it gains attention and credibility in the market. This positive sentiment can further boost investor confidence and contribute to a rise in Zeus Coffee's share price.
Thank you, Nadia and Afifa. That is very interesting because as simple action like boycott still can bring big impact. So unfortunately, we are only left few minutes. So before ending our podcast today, I think I will take this opportunity to thank my Sarah, Nadia, Sarah and Afifa
No problem.
for all the wonderful views and arguments throughout this session. And I hope this could be a kind act from us to spread awareness to the public on continuing boycotting as the initiative to show our solidarity towards Palestinians. May all that we have discussed in this podcast bring benefits to us and the listeners as well. That's all from us. Thank you and Assalamualaikum.
Goodbye, everyone.
Thank you.
See you in the next video.